Yes. Yes. Analysis. Hello, ma. Ma. Yes. Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Yes.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. I think we're all online.
Yes, we are.
I don't know if there are people in the room.
Yes. 1 minute.
Hello.
All right. Hello.
How are you guys doing in Lagos?
Very well, thank you.
Oh,
Your
I wish I
audio
was
works
there.
well. Oh, yeah. It would have been nice to see you.
It looks lovely.
Yes, it's good to see you. So, how is the audio from your own end?
It's fine. I can hear you fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we hear from Ebonluwa? Can we test our audio, please?
Hi, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Can you hear us properly?
Yes, I can.
Thank you so much. Can we hear from Lillian Ezobo?
Yes, I'm right here and I can hear everyone. Good morning, everybody.
Hi, Lillian.
Good morning. Thank you for
Hi.
joining.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Over to our chair.
Hello, everyone. Oh, Elumi is in the audience. She says that's good. It's a shame we can't really see the audience. I think are we good to start? Should we start now or should we wait a bit? We're good to start? Yes, I think we are. I'm taking that as a yes. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm calling in from the UK, from Lincolnshire. My name is Dr. Hadiza Kiri Abdurrahman. I'm a senior lecturer in inclusive education at the University of Lincoln, and I've been asked to chair this session on the graduate school application and experience in Europe. So what we have today is perspective from graduate students, and we'd really like to thank the graduate students who have availed themselves today to share of their experiences. I think the way we're going to go about this is just the way that it's been listed in the proceedings. What are the things I would like to ask the speakers to do, first of all, is to tell us a bit about themselves. So in like a bio, tell us where you are, how you found the experience, and first of all, we'll go around and introduce ourselves, and then we'll start. According to my proceedings, I have Lillian first, then I have Ibn Olua, and then I have Adefola Tomiwa. I have Esther next. So 4 speakers. In the interest of time, if we take 15 minutes each, and then we can ask questions at the end and mop up any other thing that comes up. I think if you're okay with that. So if we start with Lillian, please. Lillian, you're muted.
Sorry, totally forgot. Good morning, everybody. Once again, I'm happy to be sharing my experience. Last year, I was on the other end helping with volunteering, and this year I'm live from the UK. So it's in the church, we'll say it's a testimony. Oh, well, so I am a graduate student at the University of Cambridge. I'm doing an MPhil at the Center for African Studies. Before coming here, I did an MA at Obafemi Awolowo University, and before then, I finished my bachelor's in arts from the University of Nigeria in Nsukka. Yeah. So you said we should introduce ourselves, and you said 15 minutes, so I'm not sure.
I think if we went around and take introductions, everyone's name.
Okay, for 15 minutes.
Yeah, no. So maybe
Okay.
How would you want to do this? Let's be democratic. Do you want to speak now? I thought if we went around and asked everyone to introduce themselves and then we started.
I just want to understand because you said 15 minutes, and I'm wondering if I should take 15 minutes to introduce myself. I think that's a lot of time for me.
No, that's a lot of time for an introduction. I was just thinking 15
Yes,
minutes
no.
for when you really start talking. But
Okay,
I'm
okay.
happy for you to go first. If you guys are happy for her to go first, and then you introduce yourselves and talk when it's your time. Is everybody okay with that?
Okay, sorry, just one more thing. I think because of all the questions that we have, in my opinion, it would be easier if we ask the question and everybody responds to it
We
because we
can
all
do
have different
that as well. Okay, so I like the democracy since
so it
this
becomes
is what
like
we're
more
practicing.
interactive.
That's fine. So then we will move on to Ade Folatomiwa to introduce herself, and then Esther. No, sorry, Ebon Lua first, and then Ade Folatomiwa. So Ebon, please, if you go next.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Ebolo Ayamo. I'm currently a doctoral student at Science Po, Paris, France, but currently I'm in Nigeria. I'm in Ijebu. I actually escaped from all the rush and preparation for the Olympics, and I'm here for my archival research. So I'm currently speaking from Ijebu. So I think I'll be in LSA tomorrow. Yeah, so I have a bachelor's in History and International Studies from Babcock University. Then I have a master degree in international history from the Graduate Institute of International Development Studies, Geneva, Switzerland. And yeah, currently doing my doctorate at Science Po with on African history, on the history of punishment and pain in colonial Nigeria with Professor Florence Bonner, which is also a professor at University of Wisconsin-Madison. Thank you.
Thank you, Ebon Lua. Can we have Ade Folatomiwa next, please?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I'm Adefola Akinde, a PhD student of architecture at the University of Liverpool in the UK. I had my bachelor's in architecture at the University of Lagos, then a master's in environmental design, still at the University of Lagos, then started my PhD degree in architecture. I'm currently studying my research is more of architectural history. I'm studying the modernist architecture of the first universities in Nigeria, looking at how we can find a connection between the architecture and the goals of independence in the early 1960s. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure we have Esther in the house today. So in the absence of Esther, I'll just go around and ask the questions. And again, we'll follow the order that we started with. I think the first questions are things to consider when picking a graduate program. So you're all on graduate programs. What were the things that you considered when picking a graduate program? If we start with Lillian, please.
Thank you once again. When picking a graduate program, there are several things to consider. For me, it was important that I go to a school that has something that I'm interested in. So you must have finished from a particular program and you want to look out for schools that have that particular program that you've done or that you want to do, because you might also want to switch. I mean, graduate programs allow you to switch in Europe, especially. In Nigeria, no. I tried it in Nigeria, it didn't work. My background is in music. I studied music in UNN, University of Nigeria, and Nsukka. I also studied music in Obafemi Awolowo University. But I wanted to do something in the social sciences. I wanted to do a more multidisciplinary program, and I didn't have that flexibility in Nigeria, and that's one of the major reasons why I wanted to do it here. So I looked out for a school that has something that I wanted to do. I wanted to do African studies, and so University of Cambridge. There are so many schools that do it, but I was also looking out for funding, and I was sure that I wanted to come to Europe, to the UK specifically. And funding in the UK is not as much as it is in the US, as most of us know. So I had to look into the Ivy League schools because they have more funding opportunities than other schools. So if you're looking for funded opportunities in Europe, you want to look at bigger schools, because a lot of the funding bodies don't have the patience to start recruiting one by one. So most times they give the money to the big schools, and those big schools, once you get admission there, they're sure that, okay, this person is good enough to get our money. And so it's not automatic. There are people who still don't get it, but it's worth trying, especially if you don't have to pay. I paid application fee, but for some of the schools, you don't have to pay application fee. You just check for your program. Not all programs take application fees. You want to check for that. It was also important to me to, okay, get funding. Yeah, I already spoke about that. And also from having done a BA and an MA, I was a bit worried about doing a PhD because I wanted to switch. I didn't want to do a PhD in music. So I wanted to switch. And so that's why I applied for an MPhil in a program that allows me to still, in African studies, you can basically do anything African, you know, be it history, politics, arts, basically anything in African studies. You also have to check with your school because, again, there has to be a supervisor, someone willing to supervise you. So I also had to find a supervisor, and that was one of the things that made me come to Cambridge, because I actually met my supervisor at LSA 2021, and that conversation went on, and she agreed to be my supervisor. So you might want to also leverage on the network at LSA, whether virtually or physically. If you're there physically, if you're there virtually, find people who are in the line of the things that you're interested in and connect with them. That's the amazing thing about LSA, because it's just so even. I mean, everyone, you can meet just anybody at LSA. So, and you don't have to be scared or worried about having conversations. The worst that can happen is no. So have fun, interact. LSA is such a leveler, and I think we should continue to leverage on that, and also be very, very respectful. I mean, don't abuse the opportunities, because they can really hurt you later. So yeah, those were the major things for me: funding, the program, the length of the program. My program is 1 year, and I've done a master's for 2 years. I did my master's for 4 years, actually, because COVID, strike, everything in between. So time was not on my side. So yeah, these are some of the things you want to consider. Yeah, so I better keep quiet here so other people can talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Lillian. Ebonlua, do you want to go next, please?
Yes. So for me, it's more of my needs first. So right for the time, I've always wanted to work in diplomacy, things related to international relations. I know there are a lot of people wanting to work on international relations, but I decided to work on things related to international history, which is a very different aspect of international relations. So right from my days in Babcock, I've always been interested in diplomacy and international relations. So I did a lot of networking and disturbing some of my professors back then. And so for me, I also wanted continuity. So I have two different experiences when graduate studies in Europe. I have the one in Switzerland, I have the one in Paris. So I would say my experience in Switzerland actually helped my experience in Paris, but both are just two different aspects. So Switzerland is kind of a diplomacy place. So I really used every single opportunity there to build my professional life, my professional experiences, and which also helped me get into the school in Paris. So as I said, my needs were first. So I looked at science, but is it going to really help my future? And there were so many rumors about the school being the advert of Europe, because if you go there, you want to be a president, you want to be a politician, that's the easy place for you to go. So I looked at my needs to be a diplomat and future plans. So I decided to go to Science Pole, and the flexibility for me to switch between being a career person in terms of working with the UN and RCRC, and also looked at my flexibility of being a professor, of continuing working as a professor. So I looked at both, and the school offers both to me, so I can actually switch in between. So those were the things I ticked in my box when I was looking at the school. I also applied to other schools in Europe, but I preferred that because of the flexibility. And I also questioned myself on, okay, I said past experience. So I decided on a place in terms of my professor's interests and professor's interest, because my professor works on the history of prisons and colonial medicine, and all the previous professors that I sent emails in Oxford, Cambridge, and other places kept on talking about the same person. So I decided to reach out to her and follow up with her. And I was also keen on acceptance. Is the school in the international standard? I don't want issues where I'll be crying every day as a graduate student. So my graduate life is also very difficult. So racism, microaggressions, acceptance of other ideologies were very important to me. So I saw, even though, yeah, the school in Paris is not 100% in that aspect because I'm the first Black and first African in that department. So it's still a very long way for them to go, but I could see the acceptance is there, the willingness, and everyone wanting to work with me. So those were the things I considered for myself. I was really looking forward to my future plans, like after graduate school, what do I really want to do? So that's why I decided to pick the Paris school. Yeah.
I just want to ask, is your program in French, or how did you navigate the language thing?
Yeah, so actually, the school claims it's bilingual, but it's not bilingual enough because most of my classes and conferences are always in French, and I sit there with my little knowledge in French, and sometimes I'm lost and I just raise my hand up. They say, "Oh, so we forgot you're there." I was like, "Yes, please, can you switch to English?" So they try their best when it comes to the language aspect to kind of switch in between. And also they encourage people to have French certificates before coming in, like a little level of French certificate. And also the Ministry of Education is really communicating with the school to make it more bilingual and not 100% French. So in my currently it's 80% French, 20% English. So you have to work hard on your language skills if you want to go there. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I can see that we have Esther. Hi, Esther. Nice to have you rapping on the ground. We'll come back to you in a bit for your introduction and then answering the first question. Can we have Adefola Tomiwa next, please?
Well, for me, I guess it started off with knowing what I wanted. I knew I wanted to start a PhD or after my master's or so. So I was much more conscious of the courses I took, of the extra online courses I also took to help me be better prepared and to be more aware of what I needed to have before applying for a PhD. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, we can hear you.
Yeah.
So choosing the university, I knew that I was going to go to a place that spoke English because I didn't have the energy or bandwidth to learn a new language. And I thought that it would kind of make the experience less awesome if I had to struggle with language barrier. So language was also an important aspect. As Lillian has said, funding too was what I considered because the PhD is a very expensive venture and I did not have funds. Even if I did, like, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of money. So I definitely was looking out for funding. And I already started growing a few interests in architecture, attending some architecture conferences, knowing it was in the field and some areas of interest that I may want to pursue. But why I chose the University of Liverpool was because of they had a call for applicants for a research project. And you had to pick, it was architecture of independence, and I now had to pick a particular field. And what they were talking about was what we've done in school. I had a few ideas and I thought, well, this sounded perfect for me. So I said, let me just give it a try. And well, that's how I applied for it. And I actually even knew the supervisors from their previous work. So it wasn't very strange because I had a kind of an idea of who they were, what their interests were, and like what they might be looking out for in the application. So that was how I actually started a PhD. So it was with the university, but the university had funding with another external funding. So applying for funding wasn't a problem because it was through the university. And well, for me, that was that was how I chose the University of Liverpool. I think another issue, yes, as Ebola mentioned, was acceptance. Like, do I want to be in a place apart from school? Is the city or the town accommodating for me? Because I couldn't imagine doing a PhD that is stressful and being in a place where you're definitely from outside, you're a resident in that space. So as much as possible, I have tried to look for a place that wouldn't have any social implications, negative social implications, like maybe making friends and having stores or places that you go to and really enjoy yourself beyond school.
I think what I also hear you not saying, Adifala Tomiwa, is being a hijabi and a Muslim, you want a city where you can get
Exactly.
things like halal food and your hijab would not be an issue. Was that one of the considerations? I know for me,
Yes,
it's something I also think about where I go, like what problems may I encounter.
yes, for me it was. So I felt like the UK was a little bit more accommodating than other European countries,
Okay.
although they still have the issues, but at least there's still a bigger
Thank you
diversity in the
very,
UK than elsewhere in Europe.
very much for sharing that. Esther, can you hear us? Thank you. Esther, can you hear us? Hi, Esther. Oh, we can't hear Esther.
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you now.
Okay, okay. Hi
I think they're
everyone.
just taking the microphone to her.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. My name is Esther Chioma Owanzumodi. I am an alumnus of the University of Lagos here. I did my master's here before proceeding to the UK for my PhD. I'm currently studying for a PhD in gender and migration studies. So my PhD is transnational in nature because I'm looking at the experiences of African migrant women across Europe, America, and other parts of the world where they find themselves. My research is literary in nature, though it encompasses social issues, political issues, economical issues that affect women when they migrate outside their countries in Africa. So, and I'm here to talk about the opportunities that exist. I'm a student of a researcher in the University of Strathclyde, Glasgow, United Kingdom in Scotland. And there's been a lot of opportunities for me, which I believe would benefit students or people who are looking forward to postgraduate research outside the country. I wasn't fully funded, but I would say sometimes you look beyond the fully funded requirements. Many of us look out for funding, fully funded. I was looking out for that for like 2 or 3 years before I finally got the partial funding. And the experience has been worthwhile because, as I said, my research is transnational in nature. I'm looking beyond the experiences of Nigerian women because I've been in Nigeria. I know what it is. But I'm looking at the experiences of women from Muslim, Islamic countries, different countries, women who have been affected by a lot of issues and limitation. And the question is, why the United Kingdom and why Scotland? It took me a while to find out my reason for picking Scotland. But as I go on in the PhD, I'm in my 3rd year now. I now see that, yes, there was a purpose for me getting into Scotland, because unlike other parts of the UK, I feel Scotland is more welcoming and accommodating to immigrants, especially from African descent. So they are more welcoming, and Glasgow is a hub where opportunities exist beyond just going to school or just doing research. I've been part of a lot of things. I've gotten a lot of grants, a lot of awards because of my involvement as a graduate student. So being a graduate student in the University of Strathclyde, which is one of UK's first choice universities, opens opportunity for those who are looking forward to studying there. In my faculty, I think I'm the only African who is doing, or I'm the only student or the only researcher who is researching on African experiences. And that made me stand out. In my choice of choosing a supervisor, I was looking out for someone or people who have experience, who have written about the experiences of African people, not necessarily women. I reached out to someone, I saw her profile and I reached out to them and I said, I would want you to supervise me. And she said, okay, I would signpost you to someone who I feel would be better. And I got a good supervisor who has been very supportive. There, they would give you opportunities for extra funding. Even as an international student, when I came in 2022, heavily pregnant, having accommodation issue, I never knew that there are opportunities for me. Because sometimes when we go to strange places and we hear people talk, you would not, there will be a lot of negativities, especially where we are coming from. You would hear there is no opportunity here, just go to school, come back, you are not eligible to funding because your visa states you are not entitled to public fund. So you wouldn't know as an international student, especially one who is doing a PhD, that there are opportunities for you there. I was lucky to have someone who was almost rounding up and he told me, Esther, there are fundings here and you have to access them. When I had accommodation issue, I had to write to the school, email them back and forth. They were like, no, we don't have a funding. I was able to get from their website where they said international students are eligible for this funding. Many international students wouldn't go that mile because they feel or they have heard that there are not much opportunities for them out there. But one of my take home for us today is that beyond going to school, find out what exists there. Go to the school website, speak to people, not just anybody, because there are people that you speak with and they will tell you, no, 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 no. But even when you hear no, you can still push forward. You can still push forward. Through that back and forth of emails, I was able to get support for accommodation. And when people hear that, they're like, wow, international student, Nigerian, because of the reputation of Nigerians. Sometimes we need to break out from those single narrative of who we are. As a researcher in the United Kingdom, I have been able to know that there are a lot. You don't just accept what flies on the air. There are opportunities. I've been able to get support for international conferences. I've been able to get support for materials, laptops, and everything, which I know a lot of people don't know they can get those supports. Okay, and also, just rounding up, I would advise that anybody who is looking forward to going to the United Kingdom or any part of Europe for study, first of all, look at the environment. It is very important that you get to a place where you feel home. It is already problematic to move from home to a strange place, but it is good for you to, like the last speaker that mentioned the atmosphere or the place she's studying, that gives her the opportunity to practice her faith. In some places, you would not have that opportunity. In Scotland, in Glasgow, there are so many opportunities. As an international student, you can even go to the parliament. to be a representative of other international students. The opportunities are limitless, and it is important for us to look beyond where we are, look beyond the people we are mingling with. You can mingle out, it is necessary for you to mingle with people outside your nationalities or where you're coming from, because by so doing you get so much opportunities. So I don't know if that
Yes,
answers.
that's perfect. Thank you very much. And we have some few other questions. Part of my job here is to make sure that we answer all the questions and also
Yeah.
allow the people in the room to ask questions. So again, I'm going to take another round of questions
Okay.
and then we'll go on that way. Sometimes I may need to round you up so that we can answer all the questions, but please
That's
take that in
fine.
good faith.
That's
So
fine.
the next question is contacting prospective supervisors, do's and don'ts. I've had a lot of, so I'm gonna all let you speak, but as a supervisor who gets contacted a lot, I also just wanted to add something at the end, if that's okay. So
Okay, that's fine.
again, we'll start with Lillian,
Okay.
please. How did you contact? Well, you did say that you met yours, but if there's anything else that you'd want to add, that would be great. And please do not feel like you need to speak for long. Some questions may not directly speak to your experience, and that's fine, because there may be something else that speaks to your experience later on. All right. Thanks, Lillian. If you go next, please.
Okay, I just wanted to add, I think before Esther joined, we decided that we would go question by question because she
Yes.
seemed to be all the questions,
Yes.
so she
Sorry,
was
we
aware
didn't.
of that.
I'm
So
loving
yeah,
I'm loving your co-chairing, Lillian. Thanks for the reminder. That's okay. Jump right in.
please forgive me.
No, that's good. I'm happy. It's a democracy,
Just
right?
typical of me.
That's okay. Yes, Lillian, sorry, Esther, we decided that we would go question by question.
Okay, that's fine.
Lillian, if you go with contacting supervisors, do's and don'ts, please.
Okay, so before I applied to Cambridge, I started applying to graduate school in 2017, and I kept getting partial funding, small funding, no funding, and in all of that, it was important for me to actually get a supervisor. So yes, I've had the experience of having to contact people, blank emailing people that I've never met. So the first thing for me was to find the schools. You definitely don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, so you're not working with just one school. You have like at least 3 schools that you're applying to at the same time. And from these 3 schools, you would want to look at the departments that you're interested in, find people whose research aligns with what you're doing, because you might have a really high grade in terms of what your CV looks like, but you might still get rejected if they don't have someone who can supervise you. So you want to find supervisors, lecturers who have done something connected to what you're doing. You want to look at their works, read some of their writings, just try to know them, even though you've never met them. Just try to have an idea of who they are before you send them an email. And you also want to check on the school websites. For some of the supervisors, you will see where they've written that they're not accepting students for this year or for next year or for a period of time. Maybe they're on leave, or maybe their hands are full, or maybe they have some health challenges. So don't waste your time sending emails to those people, because they're still going to reject it. It's not that they hate you, it's just what it is. So you find those people that are open to take supervision for the year, and you focus on the ones that have something connected to what you're doing. And then you send them an email. So in that email, it's an email to someone you've never met. There's a word for it. I'll remember. So when you're sending cold emails, yeah. So when you're sending that cold email, you want to be as straightforward as possible. You don't have to send it like a letter to someone that you know. It's someone you don't know, but you also want to express yourself in a very concise manner. So you share your research experience, you can attach your proposal and make it as straightforward. It doesn't have to be the full proposal. At that point, it can just be a one-page document, just something to show them straight to the point what you are interested in, what you want to do. So you in that your mini proposal or whatever you're adding to your email, or even if it's just the email you're sending, you tell them a bit about your background, what you're currently doing and what you want to do when you come there. So make it as straight to the point as possible, and try not to sound too rigid or too familiar. Just be somewhere in between. Be friendly, but don't go telling them about your personal history. Nobody really cares about that. I mean, maybe they care later, but at that point, you just want them to be interested in your research. So, and then you don't want to send a generic email. For instance, I met a student that, okay, she just found people that she was interested in, and she sent this email and just CC'd all the other supervisors from all the other schools. So it's, I don't know, it's wrong to do that. If you're sending an email to someone, make them feel as special as possible. You want them to feel like they're the only one that you've sent this email to. Even though you want to send it to someone else, you should adjust it to, don't CC anybody. You should just edit that email to fit this other person, because this person they may both be professors in the same field, but different schools, different experiences. So you want to make the email to fit each person based on your need and based on their experience, based on your experience as well. So don't send the same email to 5 different people. Don't CC people in an email to a prospective supervisor. That is really going to mess up the whole process. And then keep away your personal life as much as possible. Like I said, they're not really interested at that point, especially. And you also want to send emails to people who you've connected with their works, and you are sure that, to some extent, they are willing to supervise people. If they are open to supervision for the year, then you can send them emails. If there are people who have something connected to what you're doing, then you can send them emails. Don't CC other people. I wanted to add something, but I don't know why I'm repeating myself. Okay. Yeah. Then no long emails. If I remember
do you want
anything
us to come back? You can come back to you if you remember something else.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Okay, then. Ebola next, please.
Thank you. So for me, it was very interesting because I got a couple of advice from previous PhD students. For instance, Damlola Adebayo, we went to the same graduate school in Geneva, and I contacted him a lot. So he was giving me a lot of tips on things to do and not to do. But there was something which really stood up, which I got from senior colleagues, was that I should leverage the relationship between professors. So that's very important, which I noticed. A lot of professors know each other. So especially in Europe and in America, they know. So there's this networking among those professors. So I leverage a lot on it. So all the emails I sent to schools and so professors had my academic advisor's name boldly written. And those that knew him were like, oh, I know him. He was my classmate. So, so that really gave me more opportunity of gave me more audience with these people. So that was my number one selling point. My relationship, previous advisors' relationship with other professors. And another one which I used was I looked at, I did a little research on these professors. I looked at their selling points, and I don't want to send an email to someone that had issues with my previous university. You know, professors are always having issues in academics due to one or two things. So I didn't want to shoot myself in the leg by sending an email to someone that had a situation with my previous professors or universities. So I did a little research on these professors, then I leveraged on their selling points. For instance, my supervisor, she loves anything related to the history of pain. She loves anything related to Foucault. So my email and my proposal, I was just chipping in Foucault in and there. And it just got our interest, even though I use it wisely. And another aspect was that when I was writing emails to my current professor, my current supervisor, I really emphasized on recommendation from other professors. So those who recommended me reaching out to her, I wrote their names. I was like, this person told me he has a previous work experience with you. You're an expert in this field. So that's really got an interest to speak to me. And also, as I said earlier, my professor liked anything in the history of pain. So I was just always looking for that thing that will make her want to have good interest in my research. And also as Lilian said earlier on, I also sent a copy of my proposal. So proposal, I think a lot of people think proposal is kind of like a summary. It's just like, for me, I used a year to write just that one page, more than a year to write that one page of proposal. So the proposal it got our interest. It had a lot of things, a lot of ideas I knew, but I just kept like 4 or 5 different ideas and wrote under that, okay, this proposal is still under review. I'm still working on more things to improve it. So that also got our interest. And after she saying, oh yes, don't worry, I'm going to supervise you, she told me to write 20 pages of my proposal. that was the worst ever. So the worst ever situation, because she told me she doesn't accept too many students. She accepts just maybe 1 or 2 for like 3 or 4 years, because in Science Po, you write your PhD for 4 to 5 years. And she doesn't accept a lot of students, like 2 years or 3 years interval. So she really tested my patience and me wanting to do more work. So she told me to write 20 pages of my proposal. So I knew I was going to do a lot of work. So I wrote it, and I was, okay, now I can accept you to be my student. So it was a very long journey back and forth with her. So, I mean, professors will want to test your patience and your willingness to go extra mile. And I think that really was really tested by my professor. And for emails, I make sure I don't send emails in the night. I look at the time zones, and I send. This is a very bad professional thing. I send emails, like if they are to resume 9 a.m., I send the email 8:45, so that it will be the top of the emails they receive. So I don't want to like a reminder to my previous email. No, I send it a specific time so that when they log into their emails, it's going to be one of the top emails they find. So those were the tricks I used, and that's how I got in contact with my supervisor. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. We're going to take Adefola Tomiwa next, and then we'll go to Esther, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Well, for me, my experience was quite different, since I said that it was a call for application and then I applied. So my application, the proposal, and everything had to put my best foot forward for it, since that was the criteria for selection. But what I did was to contact the potential supervisor to ask a few questions about the application. It wasn't necessarily so important, but I felt like if I could start a rapport with my potential supervisor, it made me feel much more confident and could help my application. Just that, yeah, I'm applying, this is me. Even if I get it, I don't get it, I've established a rapport with the supervisor. Another thing I did was also to reach out to other professors that were in the field, but not necessarily on the supervisory list. So I reached out to a Nigerian professor, Professor Ola Uduku, who had worked in the field for so long. So she gave me some advice on the application. I remember having like a long WhatsApp call with her in one afternoon about it. And funny enough, she ended up becoming the head of department at my university when I started up. So I guess that approach, reaching out to professors and just trying, well, the worst that could happen is they won't reply, and most times you also get many people that don't reply. But when you do, I think it just makes it easier and helps your confidence level that you're establishing communication with people in academia, that if you're going to be in this field later on, it starts from somewhere.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to Esther now, reaching out to supervisors, do's and don'ts.
Okay. For me, my experience is similar to some of the people there, because I had to look at. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. All right. Thank you. First, I had to look at for supervisors who had similar interests, or who are researching or had researched on what I wanted to do. As I said, my research interrogates the lived experiences of migrant women from Africa. So I was looking at people who had researched on not just Africa, but the experiences of women. And fortunately, I reached out to someone, and she signposted me to someone else whose research was not centered on women, but he was open to research, to be part of my research. And then he contacted a second supervisor who is also a feminist or who researches on women experiences. So that one was one. And then sending an email, as the first speaker said, I avoided generic emails. I could have like a standard or a format, but I would look at the profiles of each of these persons, these professors, and try to tweak the email I'll be sending out to them to reflect their experiences. And I would deviate a bit from saying they don't want to know about you so much. For me, it was important for me to tell them a bit about myself. I had to say that I am an African woman who has been interested, who has researched from my undergraduate days, that my master's days, and I'm also interested in looking at and interrogating the experiences of African women outside Africa. What are the opportunities? What happened to them? So I asked this question that I may not really know so much, but I'm interested because I want my research to answer questions, to provide insights about the experiences of African women. So these people are British people. I was able to gain their interest by talking about my own personal experience or the experiences of women like myself. So I think that was like an added advantage. And when I had the opportunity of meeting with them, I came out confident. I came out very confident. And I was not shy to talk about why I'm interested in it and some of the politics that happen when women migrate. So for me, it's very important for you to reach out to people who have similar interests with you. Don't send generic emails. And when you're sending emails, don't send informal emails. You have to be very formal. You don't know these people, but you should make them know or feel that you have idea about what they are doing. You don't just send an email that, hello, good morning, I want to research on this and I want you to be my supervisor. Would you accept that? Let me know. I await your response as soon as possible or something like that. They would just wonder and say, who is this person? But your email would be very informed. You introduce yourself. This is who I am. This is what I've been doing. They want to know where you're coming from. This is what I've been doing, and this is what I want to do. I'm interested in this because you're not, even though you have an interest in something, you don't know so much about that. And they too may not really know so much about that because my supervisors don't know so much. They tell me that, Esther, you are the one leading us. We are not Africans. So it is what you tell us. So they are also researching about my experience or the experience of African women like myself. So you have to engage that from your email and let them know that you've done some background research about them. Like I've read, you just say, I saw this your book and I took time to read it. And I think this is very interesting. I would really want to know much about this or how this theory you propose would really help my research. That would make them know that you are very interested. You're not just a shallow researcher because nobody wants to waste their time in supervising someone who does not know what they want to do from the onset. So it's very important you take those steps. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to just add a bit from that as someone who receives a lot of emails from prospective students. There are some emails that I do not answer because they're not worth my time. And I'll tell you what, is those ones that are really generic. You've sent it to every single member of staff. That's not for me. You're fishing. So I'm not in the lookout for that. The other ones are those that would ask me questions. What is your school offering? What do you do? And I'm like, it's on the website. Go and have a look. I'm not answering that either. Do your research. It's always important. If you can't be bothered to do your research and you're asking me, then what kind of PhD students are you going to be? Pay attention to details. You'd be shocked at the number of people who don't pay attention to details. This is when you're emailing a prospective supervisor, it's really first impressions.
Yeah.
And you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So at least watch out. If your medium of communication is going to be in English, you have to be able to meet the academic register. You have to be able to write to that academic standard, right?
Yeah.
If you can't do that in an email, I'd worry that you can't even you wouldn't know where to start, and that would be a lot of hard work, because the PhD process in itself is very self-led. It's
Yeah.
not just a test in academic pursuit, it's a test in determination and resilience and your ability to research and to hang in there and to show passion. So if you can't do that in the first email, I'd worry. So these are some of the things. I think all the ladies here have said some really brilliant things, but I just wanted to say attention to details. Don't mass send, please, because we see ourselves in the corridors and we've like, have you received that email too? Nobody's responding to that. For real, because you know when it's generic, like all 10 or whatever would all receive the same thing. What are you really looking for? At least know that you know my work and know that you know what I'm doing. It's all there on the university page, what my interests are. So if you ask me something that has nothing, I'm like, where do you want me to start from? That's not for me. So these are some of the things I will say in addition. We're going to move on to what admission committees look for in the application dossier. Again, I have experience of this, but I'm going to let the ladies just share their thoughts on what they felt the committees were looking for and how they tried to target that. If we start with Lillian again, please. Or if we, in the interest of being egalitarian and democratic, I don't mind if we switch it around. Lillian, are you happy to go first?
Yes, I'm happy to switch it around, actually. I'm happy to switch it around.
See, I like that because I read from your face. Who wants to go first this time around?
I can go.
Thank you, Ebu. I like that.
Thank you.
Okay. So my experience was quite very different because, I mean, the way in which my institution goes about with the admission process is very stressful and takes months to get to reply. So the first thing I got from advice I got from my previous academic advisor was like, my grade was not too important for my application, that there are other things in which they're looking for. And so apart from, I mean, talking to other person, my supervisors, I leverage a lot of my professional experience, like my internships and others. I use those as my strengths for my application, and also looked out for what my institution is looking for. As I said earlier on, the science pool I'm the first main science pool history student that is African and Black and a woman. So it's a lot. So I actually leverage a lot of that. I mean, that was my strong point. Apart from being a very good academic student, I mean, I leveraged a lot on that in my personal statement. And I also got a lot of help from my supervisor. She gave me a lot of tips. You know, after writing that long 20 pages proposal, and she said, okay, yes, you have what it takes. You have, you're in the right stage, the right step. She gave me a lot of tips on things to write in my personal statements and how to restructure my proposal for the committee. And she was really on the lookout for me in the panel. So I did an interview. And so according to the academic and the professors there were like over 50 or 100 applications, and they do a first selection. Then they select the top 20 students that their proposals and application was very good. And after that, they select another 10 students for interview. Then among those 10 students, after the interview, they select 5 or 6. Then after that, it goes to the School of Research. They do another selection. And after that selection, they hand over to the Ministry of Education. And the final 4 or final 3 will be contacted if they get the admission. So it was very long and competitive. So you have to be ready to give all it takes. So I really leveraged also on the school more interest on having stronger relations in Africa. I know they have a relationship with IFRA due to Professor Laura Fashad. So I also leveraged on that and said more about wanting to build a relationship between Nigerian studies, African studies, and IFRA and all those things. And Also, my school wanted someone who could teach, like your educational background is very strong, you know what you're talking about, because immediately you're given the admission, the first semester, you start teaching. You start teaching. So you be it's not a normal TA. You teach undergraduate students. So they want you to have a good understanding of aspects of history, what it means to teach. So they really dwell more on your ability to teach students. So they don't just look for people that are not up to that standard. So I think that's it. And the quality of education which the person had previously, because I had masters in Geneva, and during the panel, they were asking a lot of questions about my experiences in Geneva, Switzerland, and how and that is going to help me in the school. Also, they asked me a lot about my relationship with my supervisor, and they don't just want a student in which the relationship with the supervisor is just going to be really out after the first year. So I really emphasized on a strong relationship with my supervisor and everything. So yeah, that was my experience.
Thank you. Should we go to Adefola Tomiwa next?
Okay, yes. Thank you. For me, there was kind of like a criteria they added in the application, for application. So it was, I think, easier to just work with that. But even with that, I tried to, well, sell myself. The application required like having experience with archives or archival experience in any way, like career-wise or professional-wise. And the ones I had in school was mainly volunteer work. But that was what I used to like sell myself. I am not a stranger to the field. Even if at that time I hadn't even stepped into an archive, although I kind of had experience in what goes behind the archive, but not necessarily using it. So I just used that experience as someone that was working on like a non-profit trying to build an archive. It said that is my experience working with archive. Another thing I did was also I did my own work. I would say that that's just the first thing to do. These are the institutions working on the project, because my PhD is with an academic institution and an heritage institution, the National Archives. So I spent days going through the National Archives London's catalog and look at what are the materials that I would need or I would use in my research. So I would say that was easy because I had the material. It wasn't so difficult, but I think that was that was a good selling point for myself. And after the application, I wrote an interview. I had an interview also with all the supervisors, and they were up to 4. So and some were academic, some were in the heritage industry. So I just had to know how to answer questions that would say that, yes, I'm academically sound and also interested in the professional aspects of records keeping, generation, and what it means for my work. And I would just say that in the interviews, just be confident. You've written the application anyway. You sold yourself in a cover letter. So just say it as it is. As I'll say, there was words that happen. You would get a rejection. So just put your best foot forward. And when I got it, I know that I asked my personal supervisor, why was I chosen? They said that we were up to 50. And they said that the reason why the picking was that I had experience with archives, yes, and I was able to pass my message across through my writing and through the interviews. I was able to communicate effectively that they knew that they didn't really have to work on maybe my research skills or anything like that. I wasn't sure that it was okay enough to start off a PhD. And another thing they mentioned was, yes, the experience as a Nigerian studying Nigerian architecture was something that they were also looking out for. So I guess those 3 things worked in my favor, and that was like, I think that was what they were looking out for. But for applications that require professional and academic experience, I think you just have to leverage it and see whatever experience you have, even if it's academic, even if it's volunteer work, or even if it's anything that you might not think is important, but you can also just translate to your application. Just look out for it, and yeah, I think it makes the difference.
Thank you. Should we go to Lillian or Esther?
I'm happy to speak now.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Next time we'll start with Esther then.
Great. Okay, so I just want to touch a bit on people applying for masters, because this is for postgraduate studies, and that includes masters and PhD.
Yeah.
And so if you're applying for masters, for the other session about reaching out to supervisors, if you look on the website of the schools you're applying to, some of them would say you don't have to apply, you don't have to connect or have a supervisor. But for a PhD, it's compulsory. For a master's, it's not. Not every school allows you to do that. But you might also want to do that just so you have someone inside that might speak for you, especially when it comes to now recruiting. I mean, because not all master's programs would do interviews, but PhDs, yeah, interviews are compulsory. But for masters, you might not have the opportunity to do interviews where you can like talk about your work really. So even if the school says you don't need a supervisor, you don't need to already have a supervisor, just apply to the school, you might still want to maybe reach out to one or two people just to be sure that there is someone in there who is willing to supervise you. And if they are not, they would most likely recommend someone or a school. They might even recommend a school, a totally different place, a different school, or recommend someone else who is in the department whose work connects more to what you're doing. So, and then if they say no, I mean, we just move on. I just wanted to touch on that for those people applying for master's program. Moving on to the question. Well, the things that they would be looking out for, I've been doing PhD applications, and yeah, in fact, I was doing PhD applications before I applied to this master's program here because I felt like, okay, maybe my master's in Nigeria is not enough, because I was also scared. I had started a master's in 2019, and at 2021, I was still on with it. So it was a bit scary to apply for a PhD when your result is not even out and you're not sure of when it will come out, because you also know that there are tendencies of extra. It's my program is I've done my field, I've done my, what's it called? I've done my coursework, I'm done. I don't have any carryovers. But then you know the system. Sometimes the extra time that you get is not your fault. It's just the way the thing runs. So I was scared of applying to a PhD program and then not being able to present a transcript to show that, okay, I'm actually done with my master's. And that's why I just went back and applied for this master's program. And yeah, I'm currently doing the MPhil. So in applying for the PhD, you want to leverage on experiences like the last speaker said. Even your NYSC experience. During NYSC, I worked in Obafemi Awolowo University, and it was an important experience for me. And so it doesn't really have to be a university, it can be anywhere. Whatever experience you had that time really matters. Whether it is paid or voluntary position, put it there because they want to know. The only thing that you shouldn't put is maybe if it's something that is totally off your program. Let's say you worked as a salesperson, or I don't know, a totally different experience from what you're doing, because to keep body and soul together, you need to work. And sometimes the jobs that you do might not align with your career prospects. So you might want to keep certain experiences away just so that your CV is not unnecessarily long with things that are not relevant. You want to focus more on relevant experiences for your PhD and your master's application. And some of those experiences might include your NYSC experience, your during my master's program in Ife, I did some voluntary work at the archives, and I put that there. I wasn't paid for it. I did it for 3 months, and I put it in my CV, and I talked about it in my research. You also want to get familiar with, of course, you know a couple of theories, but it's important to your interviewer or to whoever is reading your application that you have an idea, even if you eventually don't use that theory, but you have an idea of what's going on in your field. So you have to put that in your application and also talk about it during your interview. The reason why you think this is necessary, even if you don't know so much about it. Nobody expects you to come fully baked. That's why we're still going to school. So you can have questions, they can have questions for you. And I don't think the interview is a place where you can say, where it's like, oh, you got the question right or you got it wrong. It's more about how you talk about it, because nobody really expects you to be fully ready for this. That's why you're there. So even if you don't have it all figured out, don't be scared. Just express yourself and talk honestly about what you have and what you want to get from them. So yeah, that helped me during my PhD application. I was asked questions about some really popular theories in my field, and I didn't quite understand some of them. And I was very honest. I said, well, I know these theories. I talked about the ones I know. And they asked me questions about some professors that I know those professors. I know their works, but I don't fully understand it. It's okay. Yeah, so you can talk about it and honestly say, you really still struggle with this. Maybe you've tried to meet the professor, or maybe it's been explained to you several times. You've tried to read about it and you're still confused. It's okay. Talk about it the way it is. If you lie about it, you can get away with it, but it can still hurt you later. Also, in my application, there's a publication that I did in 2020 with IFRA. It was my first research grant, artists and something about COVID, how people were surviving coronavirus. And my work was on arts and artists surviving the lockdown. And this work was funded by IFRA. I did it. I submitted it to IFRA. It was published. They sent me the ORCID number, sent me all the details about that. But guess what? I never went back to look at it. A lot happened. I lost it. And then it's sitting pretty in my CV that I published this work. And my interviewers before the interview had gone through my application, and then they sent me an email. Can you send us this work? And I went through my work. I couldn't find it. I went online. I couldn't find it anywhere. And you know how ResearchGate works. Sometimes you just get someone mentioned you or has cited your work or has done this. And all my mind was, okay, people are working, people are using my work. I was so excited. But I never really went back to that work to see it, to check on it, to know how it's doing. And that's, I've done like 2 applications. So it's either that work or the other one. I don't know. But I was really excited about that IFRA project. But guess what? That work was lost. And I couldn't find it anywhere. And I reached out to the people who did it. It turned out the director is no longer the correct, there's been chains of directors since that project. And this can happen. And I just feel like it's important to mention that whatever you do, follow up with it. Whatever work you do, follow up with it. Save it somewhere, put it in the cloud. Just make sure that you always have access to it. If possible, constantly share it on your social media so that people know that you did this work and it's right there, it's out there. They can even give you insight into how to improve the work or how to go on with the research, or even raise more research questions to continue from where you stopped. So it's important that we put out these things that we've done, but it's also important that we follow up with them so that in the end, we're not struggling to prove that we actually did these things, because they will ask you. You might get away with it for a very long time, but at some point it can catch up with you. And it caught up with me. So to avoid things like that, follow up with your work.
Thanks.
And then,
okay. I'm just aware that we're running out of time and we still have a few more questions. I'm sure the people in the audience would like to hear about funding. Funding is always a strong one. What I'm going to do next is to allow Esther to talk briefly, but then I'm going to open up to the audience just to ask some questions, see if there are some things coming through, and then maybe in the final 5 minutes mop up on funding, if that's okay. So Esther, if you kind of just come in here and say briefly, then we'll go to the audience, please.
Okay. Like the last speaker said, it's very important that we know how to do things the right way. Can you hear me?
Hear you. We can hear you.
All right. It's very important that we know how to do things the right way. For me, getting the supervisor's approval via email was one thing. And then the other thing is to scaling the admission criteria or requirements. So in my school, I think the process is kind of different. It is very important that you attach an evidence that you have a supervisor. And it is the supervisor and maybe 1 or 2 persons in the faculty that would be at the interview panel. Your supervisor has already had an idea of what you want to do via the email, but they are meeting you for the first time with other members of the faculty board. So the supervisor may not really say so much. They have just read about your work or who you are. So it is not, they are impressed for them accepting supervise you, which is one step. But the faculty needs to be happy that someone like yourself is joining them as a student. So during the interview panel session, I was also able to convince them, and I could see the approval from my supervisors face that is proud to supervise someone who is coming from Africa, who is coming from Nigeria. And as I said earlier, I leveraged on my personal experience, my experience of volunteering. I run an NGO here in Nigeria, and I engage with a lot of women from poor backgrounds like Makoko, Iwaya. I've done a lot of projects. So I have that on social media. It's very important that you keep this record. Sometimes people say, Esther, why do you post so much on social media? For me, social media has opened a lot of spaces for me, because sometimes these people go to your Facebook, to your Twitter to see what you are posting. So they have read about you. And I published a paper in 2021 or 2019, yeah, with the Sun newspaper or the Guardian newspaper on Nigerian feminism, because I've always been involved in theory about African women's experience. So I talked about Nigerian feminism as an alternative to the broad feminist discourse in Nigeria, like what it should be, what kind of feminism should Nigerian women practice. So I was able to bring that on that interview, and they were asking me, so are you suggesting a different feminist theory for Nigerian or African feminist work or research? I said, it is very important. I was kind of scared, like, what kind of question is this? I've not gone so far, and they're asking me, are you proposing something like this? And I said, it is very important to understand the experiences of a particular people, not what has been written about them. Yes, so I now said that the experiences of African women, either at home or outside their home, is very unique and should be accounted for. So an alternative theory or framework would be necessary. I did not say it's necessary or must be necessary. I had to state it that it would be necessary for this theory, which would interrogate their lived experiences outside the shores of Africa. And they were like, okay, so what kind of theory would you propose? By that time, I've been used to African feminism or Nigerian feminism, which I had written about. So I now looked at it, I said, okay, I don't know so much about theory that exists, the theories that exist outside. But I feel because my research is transnational in nature, there should be a transnational African feminism or something. And I said, okay, does that exist? I said I would have to find out. I was scared, but I had to project that confidence. And I had to show that I know where I'm coming from. I've done a lot of research. I have experience of research. So I wasn't new to research. So it was very key in my convincing the interview board that I knew what I was going to do in the PhD proper. So it's very important that you talk about your experience, what you've done. I mentioned about some of the issues that I am familiar with being a Black woman, and I've read about what other Black women experience outside Africa. And I want to find out if there would be solution to this. And they're like, okay, wow, this is the first time that they are doing something like that. In my faculty, in my university, I'm the only person who is researching on African experience and then African or Black women's experience. So I was able to use that as a very big leverage. And for me, that was a selling point to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Because we're running out of time. When I first saw the time we had, I'm like, oh, that's a lot of time. But as these things go, it goes so quickly. I really want to open up to the floor because I'm sure they have questions. So we probably would have room for 2 or 3 questions. I'm going to need help from people in the room to help me pick 2, 3 questions. So I think we'll take the questions and then we'll see. Not everybody has to answer to a question. So if you feel like you can answer to a question, then please go ahead and do that. But if I can have the LSA team to help me decide on who to, I can't see the room at this stage, but I'd really like to take questions. Just to involve everyone and to thank you for listening to us from Lagos, where I really wish I was at this point in time.
There's a question in the chat box.
Is there? Okay, let me check. Okay, so maybe we should take that first. online privilege. My question is, I'm a masculinist, okay? Currently doing my PhD in Franco-African literature, specifically Nigerian literature in French. And I would love to broaden my scope of knowledge. How do I go about this, please? This is from Agbo Enu. So I think one of the ways that we can answer his question is that you can, all the panelists, if you have a specific answer to this, if you can type the answer for him, that would be most helpful. But while you're doing that, I would also just go to the room and ask questions. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask a question, please? And
Yes,
hello,
there's someone.
everyone.
Hello. Good morning. Yes, there's someone here.
Okay, please.
Okay, my name is
And if you
Flora
speak
Yodele.
clearly, because we may not be able to hear, so you have to project your voice. So if there's a microphone, that would be helpful as well.
So my name is Flora Yodele.
Hi, Flora.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much. I just want to ask a question for those of us who have family responsibilities. Are there opportunities, if granted the admission, or for the scholarships to also accommodate our family members as probably our dependents? Thank you.
That's question one. Should we take question two?
Good morning. My name is Yusuf Mohammed. So
Hi,
my
Yusuf.
question is for Ebun. You mentioned something about what the institution is looking for. I really want to dwell into that. Yes, there are some things that are like detailed on their website, but it takes a lot of research, you perusing their website before you can truly understand what they are looking for. And another thing I want to talk about is that, okay, while looking for intending professors, I have a personal experience about that. There are some professors that will tell you specifically that, okay, they are out of tenure, or they are out for that semester, and they are not accepting students for that semester. It's quite understandable. But there are some ones that they are accepting students, but they'll let you know that they are accepting just few students. And for me, it has really been a pain in the ass assessing their works. Thank God for Gestro. We've been able to like access some of their works. But the thing is, how, like, please can you put us through how we can be able to like access some of their work? And I understand the part of not sending generic emails and all. But one thing I want to like I want you to talk about is that like affiliation with Nigeria. Like, is it compulsory? Because I have some institutions that were like I applied for that. They are not, like, most of their history department, and they're not having affiliation with Africa and are like main white. But your research area is like transnational, and I feel like you have leverage as being a Black person. Like, that's like, thank you very much.
I think at this point we'll answer, so the first one is on family responsibilities, if anyone wants to go next. The second, that Lillian, you can go next, and then we'll let Ebu answer that. We have someone online, me, who I'll go.